Hello, my name is Uta. I was the service associate for the Sunday service on May 3rd. Due to some technical difficulties, much of the trilogy for the sermon, a reading followed by the message and concluding with a song, was not streamed. It is not available on the UUCBG's YouTube channel. Anna Tulou had specifically selected this trilogy, and it is worth watching more than once. To make that possible, I put together this recording. Call to worship. Walls turned sideways are bridges. So said Angela Davis, political activist and professional questioner. But both walls and bridges require human labor. They must be built. Today, we are invited to consider the walls we have built and those we have inherited. The rigid walls built to keep the other out, the walls that created the illusion of other in the first place. May we examine these stones to better understand them and ourselves, to better learn how to dismantle them, to turn them sideways, and to build bridges to beloved community.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Anna Tulou. I use she and they pronouns. In 1998, at the age of 18, I got a scholarship to attend a summer course at St. George's College in Jerusalem to study the biblical and socio-political history of the region alongside American, English, and Palestinian students. We traveled throughout Israel, Jordan, and Palestine, visiting many historical and contemporary sites and meeting all kinds of people. And while I was there, I fell utterly in love with the land and the history and the sacred sites of so many traditions, and with people. People dedicated to peace, to living out their faith by doing good work of building community across religious and cultural differences. And also while there, I witnessed acts of violence and brutality, oppression and degradation, likewise often rooted in religious and cultural difference, of an intensity and frequency that was astonishing. My life up until that point had been privileged and protected. And the things I saw in person there, I had previously only ever seen on the news. And so what I had before been able to think of abstractly as other people's problems suddenly became much more real, immediate, and visceral. And I was unable to reconcile all of this. How? How could such goodness and evil both be wrought simultaneously, ostensibly, at least in part, in the name of religion? I did not have the tools to do such reckoning. See, I had been raised in a Christian tradition, and I loved it fervently, and my theological questions were not always welcomed. Questions about the nature of God, about life after death, why bad things happen, sin and damnation and salvation, and who gets to go where, and is this fair? Unlike in Unitarian Universalism, in my church growing up, this kind of exploration was not encouraged, especially in young people. I was expected to accept what I was told as is. Because of all of this, I had not developed the skills of questioning and reckoning, or the ability to sit with and hold conflict and paradox. And so when I saw such pervasive harm in the Middle East, I demanded answers of my own faith. I wanted satisfying and concrete answers, and there were none to be had. And I couldn't tolerate that. And so angry and hurt, I walked away from religion entirely for over a decade. I think at the root, I felt betrayed. Now, I still felt the call to a spiritual life and to ministry. And over time, I learned to live the questions, as Rilke put it. By the time I arrived in UU, my spiritual orientation had shifted dramatically. See, I still had a whole lot of questions. But somewhere along the way, I had relinquished that need or desire for concrete answers. Instead, the aim of my questioning was to find ever more and better questions. I learned to embrace paradox, to hold conflict within me, to relish mystery. And in UU, at last, I found a religious community where my questions were welcomed, where my theological and philosophical difference was embraced. But my experiences in the Middle East have never left me. Somewhere along the way, I came to an understanding that the grave harms I witnessed that summer and the countless other harms that have been done there and in so many other places since were not because of religion per se, but because of a particular expression of conviction, sometimes religious, other times not, often entangled with other things, but an expression of conviction in which a person or a group's truth is understood to be needfully exclusive and rigid. In such a worldview, if there can be only one fixed truth, then it follows that all other truths are not truths at all, but the lies or delusions of inferior people. Do you hear that? See, if I think that mine is the only truth, then anyone that doesn't agree with me is wrong and also a threat. This is a supremacy mindset, not a pluralist one. It is a mindset of power over rather than power with. Such jealous truths are stones ready to be thrown at others or stacked and built into walls of us versus them and dehumanizing othering. And the ripples of such jealous stones were what I had perceived in those weeks I spent in Israel, in Palestine, in Jerusalem. The ripples of such jealous stones are still all too easy to perceive in the world today. So, what does our faith have to say about this? Well, in addressing religious difference and conflict, our Unitarian lineage historically proposed that there are many paths, but one mountain, one truth, the summit of which we all seek to attain, whether we be Hindu, Christian, atheist, Jew, pagan, Muslim. On the other hand, our Universalist lineage proposed that no matter what one believes or does in this life, the salvation of all in the afterlife is guaranteed by a supremely loving God. Both denominations still presumed to have access to and knowledge of one ultimate truth, one true God. And today, our expression of Unitarian Universalism challenges us further to even better questions. What if I am wrong? What if I am right, but that is only one way of rightness? What if it is not many paths in one mountain, but rather many mountains, many truths? What could we learn? What could we learn from those who believe differently from us? What if our emphasis was on the salvation of those in this life, rather than whatever comes after death? What if truth is not a static, absolute destination, a noun? What if truth is a process, a verb, evolving? One of our Universalist forebears, L. Griswold Williams, served as a minister in the early 1900s, and he wrote words that are spoken as covenant in many UU congregations today. They begin, quote, "Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer," end quote. The quest of truth is its sacrament. Now, sacrament is an interesting word. We hear in it echoes of other words: sacred, consecrate, and ment, M-E-N-T, that end of the word means an action taken or the result of an action. So put together, sacrament is, quote, "an outward and visible sign of inward and spiritual grace," end quote. In Christian tradition, sacraments include such things as baptisms and marriages and the like. Unitarian Universalism is a tradition that honors its Christian roots and today encompasses many spiritual orientations: atheist, monotheist, polytheist, pantheist, non-theist. As sure as the flaming chalice is our symbol, the asking of a question is a sacrament. A question is an invitation to ourselves to acknowledge the limits of our own understanding and embrace humility and curiosity, and also an invitation to others, other people, other beings, the universe, deity, but an invitation to something or someone beyond ourselves, an invitation for them to share their understanding, their wisdom, so we can learn and grow together. In times of war, of threat, of social collapse and climate change, one very real human coping mechanism is to seek control, to claim certainty, to cling to answers and truths, and often use them like stones to attack or wall out anyone who disagrees. This is supremacy, focused on the survival and dominance of oneself, one's group, above all others. Another equally real human coping mechanism is to get curious, to ask questions, or as the peace prayer puts it, to, quote, "not so much seek to be understood as to understand." To, even in the most unlikely of circumstances, become playful, for this is where we risk and grow the most. certainty, rigid and exclusive answers, and jealous truths. These things build walls between us, while questioning, humility, curiosity, and play allow people to transform walls into bridges that connect us. This is the way of beloved community. The question is a sacrament of our faith. When one seeks to understand, rather than scoffing at those who believe differently, when one embraces difference and doubt as allies in the quest of and for truths too big to be wholly known through just one person, when rather than asserting the dominance of our own perspective, we admit we don't have all the answers and seek instead to live the questions, that way of engaging the world becomes an outward and visible sign of inward grace. Now, as an 18-year-old in 1998 in the Middle East, because I was not equipped to reconcile the paradoxes at work in both human nature and religion, because I could not hold it all at once. All of the violence and oppressive menace I witnessed were able to crowd all of the goodness I witnessed out of my mind for a time. And so I name them now. The Jewish man who ran a childcare and community center so that Jewish, Christian, and Muslim children and families could grow together in relationship. The Palestinian minister who still to this day offers his church as a sanctuary to any in need. The Bedouin who offered us tea and hospitality, despite having had multiple members of their tribe sent to the hospital the day before. These and so many more lived in a world that is threatening and dangerous, and somehow, they continued to engage it with curiosity, courage, humility, and hope. They did not submit their spirits to the violence that would have them hide their humanity. They engaged, played, asked questions, and invited connection again and again. In closing, I invite you to listen with me to a musical piece based on a poem that was found inscribed on the wall of a cellar in a concentration camp in Cologne following World War II. This poem speaks of belief and trust that truth is something bigger than one's immediate experience. It speaks of remaining open and engaged in the face of unspeakable harm, and of how the poet struggled to reconcile the great goodness and great evil that both exist at the same time because of their difference. The lyrics contain verses that speak to humanists, atheists, and theists among us. And I invite you to cherish the words that nourish you and be glad for the ones that nourish your neighbors. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.